Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp, and I'm not joined today by Eleanor Goldfield. I am so sorry about that. Unfortunately, life gets in the way at times, but I promise you that I will be at least 30, I'm going to go 39% as intelligent as Eleanor Goldfield. So you will not be lacking much. Hope you're having a good Friday out there. Please take a second to click the thumbs up and the share and all those things to let more people know about this. Today, I will be covering a little bit of the truth about RFK's assassination, some of the questions that we know of. And the reason I'm talking about that is because we have just gotten a hold of 10,000 documents from the FBI's so-called investigation and so-called writings of RFK. Did I say RFK Jr. assassination? I don't know. Sometimes I throw in a junior for no reason. If so, my apologies. The RFK assassination back in the old 1960s. But, you know, a lot less is being made of these files coming out than the JFK files because more people care about JFK because JFK was president when he was assassinated. There are many reasons. So I think we should still spend some time on these. I'll be doing that. Also, important updates on Trump and Iran and reporting that Trump is actually the one who has waved off the strikes on Iran for now. Honestly, it may be a very short amount of time that he's waving these off, that he's saying no strikes on Iran. But for the moment, the reporting is that it actually was Trump who did not want to bomb Iran. We're going to get into that, the connections to Israel, so much more. All of that's coming up right now. Please, again, click thumbs up, click share, leave a comment. It all supports the algies. The algies. That's the nickname I'm trying to start for algorithms. Okay. So it just helps with the algies is what it does. The kids are all saying algies. I'll have you know that. Okay. You may look at me funny. I'm just doing what the kids are doing with their algies. That's what's happening right now. It's a Friday. We got to get a little loopy on a Friday, don't we? Come on. Thank you, Denise. Denise says like, share, subscribe. And don't forget to smash the like button. Okay. I want your laptop broken, and I want everyone to mail their broken laptops to me as proof that you smashed the like button. Also, a new episode of Unredacted Tonight came out last night. I hope you enjoyed it. I might show a clip of that at the end of this episode. Anyway, Tulsi Gabbard is taking all the credit for releasing these RFK files, which I don't really know. Like, wouldn't they have come out whether Tulsi Gabbard was the DNI or not? The head of national intelligence. Anyway, Tulsi Gabbard has released 10,000 new RFK files. Over 50,000 more are still to come. And she says, this building belongs to the American people. They deserve to know what's inside. And knowing Tulsi Gabbard, tomorrow she may say, this building does not belong to the American people, and they did not deserve to know what's inside. You never know with Tulsi. Day to day, you get a whole new person. That's what's exciting about her. That's why she's got so many supporters. Tomorrow, you don't know who she is. And that makes it fun, makes it thrilling, right? You never know what you're going to get. Every day you wake up and you go, who is Tulsi today? Who is she going to be? So much fun. It was her and RFK Jr. were kind of the faces of this releasing of the file. She says 50,000 more to come. I will preface this with the fact that, similar to the JFK files, very few people will read through all this stuff. So I think that's part of what the FBI and the CIA and many of these people who do not want the truth to come out, they're hoping that most of us will not read through this stuff. I got to be honest. I'm not going to read through most of it. I'm going to wait for other people to do it and then see which ones they find interesting, and then I'll read those. So they're hoping that we'll feel overwhelmed. I mean, if 10,000 have just come out and you got 50,000 more to come, but I'd say almost more importantly than just the fact that it is so many documents, most of them don't have to do with the actual assassination. They just have to do with RFK. Most of them are not that fascinating. Most of them are not big gotchas, and maybe all of them are not big gotchas. All that stuff is the reason most people are not going to dive into these. But then on top of all that, there's a lot of names. Some of them are tough to read. A lot of names, people have no idea who they are. So really, you have to kind of be an expert on this stuff to read the 10,000 documents with 50,000 more to come and have it make much sense at all. So it's like, it's a real high level of entry into being able to do much with these documents. You also have the fact that our mainstream media, a lot of them, all of them, but a lot of them are jumping into this with, nothing going on here. Oh, didn't say anything important. And it's like, really? You read the 10,000 documents already, and you knew everything that they said, and you knew every person they mentioned? Really? Same with the JFK. When the JFK files came out, you had New York Times immediately saying, here's what the documents say. And literally the headline said, parentheses, Oswald still did it. No, he did not, good sir. He absolutely did not. But so they try and get you to just go home. Don't read them. Don't care. Don't worry about it. I'm going to get into a little bit of the details of the RFK assassination in a second here. But here's from Washington Post. So some of the other outlets are basically just like, conspiracy theorists say that it wasn't Sirhan Sirhan. What crazy idiots saying it's not him. So some of the mainstream media, legacy media, whatever you want to call them, these fucking corporate goons are saying that. Washington Post did a slightly better job, and I can't put it on the screen because there's a paywall. It's a long story. There's a paywall, but you get one article free or something. So I have it on the wrong browser. Don't worry. It's just, you know what? Stupid. But here's a little bit from the Washington Post. They say Kennedy was shot in 1968, June 5th, 1968, immediately after a victory rally held following the Democratic presidential primary in California. And before I read more, let's remember what was going on before this. You had the assassination of John F. Kennedy. You had our government, and, there are debates as to which level of our government was really responsible for killing JFK. I think most believe or know that it was the CIA, but that doesn't mean the CIA didn't have help from other groups. And so RFK, he knows, or is pretty sure, but I think he knows it is the CIA that killed his brother. He then eventually decides to run for president. The people responsible, like Alan Dulles and the others, for taking out JFK, know that if RFK gets into office, he'll shine a light on all this. He'll get to the bottom of it. He'll have the authority and the ability to actually hunt down the people responsible for the assassination of his brother. So they know that they cannot let him get that power. It would be absolutely catastrophic to them if he got into the presidency and then said, oh yeah, my brother hated the CIA. I hated the CIA because they've killed my brother. So now I'm going to, break up the CIA and investigate them, et cetera, et cetera. So they have a massive motive to take out RFK, who is basically the last remaining threat or the last powerful one that could force the revelations out to the American public. And by the way, one of the best books on the assassination of RFK is A Lie Too Big to Fail, which is by Lisa Pease. Lisa Pease is a great Twitter account to follow. She's been tweeting about stuff. She is one of the few people that can read these documents and literally remember every single name, know every single random person they're talking about and what's being said. So it's a good Twitter account to follow. But to know like where exactly RFK's head was during this campaign run, you've got to remember that he's seen multiple people, some of them fairly high up in the class system in the U.S., either oligarchy or oligarchy adjacent. He's seen a lot of people assassinated after JFK for knowing too much, for having too much information, for being a little too loud about the information they have. And I'd say one of the best books and the most interesting books on one of those assassinations is called Mary's Mosaic. Mary's Mosaic is about the assassination of Mary Pinchot Meyer, who was killed a year after JFK was killed. She was shot in broad daylight in Washington, D.C., and she was JFK's mistress, but they'd also been friends and, sometimes lovers for years and years, since like high school. And she was also the daughter of, I think, the governor, or was it niece? I don't know. But she was in those oligarchy circles, governor of Pennsylvania. And she was also married to, or she was the ex-wife of one of the higher-ups of the CIA, Cordmeyer. And none of that protected her. And she was calling up RFK, who knew her well, right? She's she wasn't just the mistress of JFK. Many believe she was his true love. She was seen with him at the White House on multiple occasions. Thank you so much, Les Watts, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. I do not frown upon super chats, okay? You throw a couple of bucks in, it makes a difference. It does. So please feel free to support the show in that way or to join up at leecamp.net. Thank you, Les. But she was raising a stink. As the year goes on after his assassination, I think she was kind of a little bit waiting to see what the Warren Commission would say, because she had some sort of hope that that maybe it would tell the truth or something. But of course, it was headed by Allen Dulles, the former head of the CIA, the head of the CIA that Kennedy had fired from the CIA. So it was never going to tell you the truth, or us the truth. And so she starts raising a stink, and she's going to higher and higher people. She's telling RFK, of course, he knew, but he was not as outspoken as she was. And then what do you know? She's shot by supposedly a random dude at like 10 a.m., broad daylight, on a jogging path by the canal in D.C., and, they just claim it was a robbery gone wrong, because that happens all the time. Just 10 a.m., a dude just walks up, says, "Give me your purse," and then shoots a person. It happens all the time. All the time. But if you read this book, Mary's Mosaic, you will have no doubt that she was assassinated for what she knew and for raising a stink about it. So RFK sees people like Mary Meyer being assassinated following his brother's assassination, people he knows. And so I think he knew during this run that this was it was a death march, or it was kind of like a Hail Mary to I'm going to see if I can become the president in order to out all this stuff. And if I don't, I'll probably get killed in the process. And sure enough, he was. And he was killed, funny enough, he's killed right after he wins California, like that night, which is when he became a true threat. At first it was like, oh, well, maybe he won't win. And then he wins California, and it's like, it's looking like he's going to win. And so suddenly he's a big threat. And if you read and learn about Sirhan, who is, by the way, still in prison for this, he would have had the death penalty, except California then stopped the death penalty, so he's just had life in prison. He was supposed to be paroled. The parole board voted for him to be paroled, and Gavin Newsom vetoed that, or whatever the term is, to make sure that he is still in prison. And RFK Jr., for all of his faults and for all of his issues that he has with fact and fiction, he does not believe that Sirhan killed his father. Sirhan was but at the time was a young Palestinian man who, the argument is that he killed RFK because RFK and JFK were so good to Israel or something like that. And yet the shot, and this is even the Washington Post said this, the shot that kills Kennedy, RFK, he's shot in the back of the head at point blank range. That's what the coroner rules. And there's still powder burns on the back of the head. Sirhan was never behind him. Like, never. Sirhan comes up to him in a crowded pantry behind the stage or whatever, comes up to him, facing him, and clearly fires some kind of gun at him. But the shot that kills him is in the back of the head. That's the deadly one. Point blank, back of the head. RFK was facing him the whole time. And Sirhan is immediately tackled. You know, he gets off these shots. I think he gets off only one or two that are actually towards RFK, and then he's grabbed. And so the other ones like go up into it's like a 6-bullet gun. The other ones go up in, or maybe 8. The other ones go up into the ceiling. But the other way you know that this at minimum wasn't just him, but really wasn't him at all, is there's way too many shots. There's, shots that go through RFK's clothing. There's shots that go into the ceiling. There's shots that go into the door. There's the one that hits him in the back of the head, even though Sirhan was facing him. None of it adds up to it being done by Sirhan. Here's apparently this is one of the less gruesome autopsy photos that are in the new documents that were just released. And I'd say even this bullet, the bullet wound they're pointing to in the armpit area, looks unlikely to have come from the front as well, because it's towards the back of the armpit. But who knows? And anyway, if you read Lisa P's whole book on it, the bullets that are in evidence, put in evidence by the police, are not the ones, not the same ones. It's been proven that these bullets have been somehow switched out, or at best, if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, they confused their bullets. She puts forward the theory, and I don't think she's not the first to put it forward, that it was that Sirhan was firing blanks, and he had been hypnotized or somehow drugged, which, let's remember that the CIA at that time was working heavily on ways to drug people and get them to do things they wanted, get them hypnotized. I did an episode a few weeks back on the recent documentary that's still on Netflix, connecting Charles Manson to this program. They don't have like proof that Charles Manson was, being tested on by the CIA, but they do have proof that he just happened to be going to the same office as the biggest, I guess CIA version of this was called Project Chaos, but the FBI version was COINTELPRO and MK Ultra. Anyway, going to the same office as the CIA, psychiatrist who was one of the main people doing all this testing and all this manipulation with drugs and hypnosis, et cetera, et cetera. Sirhan, according to all experts, is one of the most hypnotizable people they've ever met. You've got, if again, in Lisa P's book, you've got all these experts that have said, they met with him and they could hypnotize him in a matter of, a minute or so. There are people who are very easily hypnotized. There are people who essentially cannot be hypnotized. And then there are people who are ridiculously easily hypnotized. And there are arguments as to how much someone will do under hypnosis. But Lisa P shows that there are actually cases, not that many, but there are cases of people hypnotizing someone and getting them to kill someone. There's one that was actually done on stage by accident. They hypnotized a cop and gave him a fake gun on a stage show in Europe somewhere. I can't remember where, Poland or something. And gave him a fake gun. And they said, when I say the word, you're going to pull out your fake gun and shoot at the crowd or shoot at this person or whatever. And apparently the entertainer didn't think about the fact that this guy who's hypnotized would pull out the fake gun, shoot at the crowd when it wasn't working. Then he pulls out his real gun, shoots at the crowd, and kills one or two people. So you can kill people under hypnosis if you are one of these people who can be easily hypnotized. But the argument is that Sirhan didn't even fire actual bullets. He was a distraction, which if he's firing blanks, that's where everyone's attention is going to turn to the guy firing blanks. And many people have said that the killer was Thane Cesar, a security guard. I'll show you a photo of him. Lisa P says she believes he was involved, but he was not. She doesn't believe he was the killer. And many said that Cesar held down RFK or held RFK as he was trying to get away. So basically the shots start going off and this guy basically holds him in place rather than allowing him to get out of the way. RFK, I believe, either said that Cesar was the killer, RFK Jr. said that Cesar was the killer, or that it was he was one of those involved. So RFK Jr. believes that. Cesar, I believe, died a few years ago and lived in the Philippines after all this shit went down. But anyway, Lisa P says Cesar was seen by one witness holding Kennedy in place. I'm not at all convinced he was the guard that shot RFK. Cesar appeared to be holding him in place for whoever did the shooting. So yeah, all of that is, some of the background of the assassination of RFK. And yeah, these files that are coming out, they very well might reveal certain facts. But as I said with the JFK files, there is 0% chance that these files are going to come out and one of them is going to say, we got him. One of them is going to be the FBI or the CIA going, damn, did we do that well? Who knew Sirhan would do such a good job for us? No, there is 0. Because A, they would probably never be dumb enough to write something like that down. B, if they did write it down, they would never file it away in their paperwork under, we'll classify it. That note you wrote to me saying, thank goodness we took out RFK. I'm just going to put it in the file cabinet here and classify it. No, they burn it. And then I can't remember if I started with letters or numbers, and that's always the worst, isn't it? A to G. But so maybe I'm on C. Let's say C. C, if both of those things happened, they wrote down we killed RFK, and they filed it away for future generations to look at. Nowadays, whoever's in charge, and I know Tulsi Gabbard is part of it, but she's probably the last in the line. Whoever's in charge of releasing this stuff and going through it to make sure there's no social security numbers, they love to say they have to spend a lot of time going through everything. Yeah, they have to spend a lot of time so that they can make sure not to show you the important stuff. Whoever is in charge of going through it right now would be burning those pieces of paper. So there's at least 3 to 15 layers of why you are not going to see the smoking gun in any of these documents. But again, that doesn't mean you won't see interesting things. And I do hope people go through them. I hope people read all of it. I think yelling nothing burger is a way to actually get people not to figure out the truth. I don't think you can just yell nothing burger and walk away when you haven't read them all yourself and understood them all. But anyway, so I think both those things can be true. We can say this stuff might reveal something. We can also say there is 0% chance that any of this says, yep, CIA took out RFK. And I said the same thing about JFK. But I would love to see the paperwork on Mary Meyer. Love to see what they have to say about Mary Meyer. If anybody's looking for a fucking thrilling read that really shows you what they're willing to do, read Mary's Mosaic. It also loops in parts of the book loop into COINTELPRO and Project Chaos and all these people. Cord Meyer, one of the tops of the CIA. And weirdly, Peter Janney, the guy who wrote this book, is the son of a former CIA officer who was one of the tops of the CIA. And he actually believes his father knew, at minimum, that Mary Meyer was going to be assassinated. And they were family friends. Like, he grew up hanging out with Mary Meyer's children. And they would hang out with Mary Meyer's family and Cord Meyer, and it was basically CIA families. And it's just weird. It's cool to hear to read this book from someone who was in the middle, like grew up in the middle of it. Anyway, check it out sometime. Also, that tells you something about our American history, doesn't it? That a member of the oligarchy could be JFK's former mistress, could be assassinated in broad daylight a year after he was killed, and you basically never hear about it. Like, no one ever mentions it. Almost zero mentions. Okay. So let's get on to some other news that I want to get to. Please click thumbs up, click share, all that good stuff. Make sure tonight, if you haven't already, that you check out the new Unredacted Tonight episode. I hope you guys have been enjoying it. I'm doing my best to keep it going. And I don't just mean writing it all, but I mean the costs and everything. I really would like to see it survive and keep going. So I hope you guys will help me make that possible. It's completely independent. I'm doing it all, myself, not the video editing, but in terms of creating it and making sure it is on your screens. Let's see. If you want to join the Discord, you can go there, tinyurl.com/unredacted Discord. And if you want to find the full Unredacted Tonight playlist, leecamp.com/unredacted. leecamp.com/unredacted will take you right there. I'll leave that up for a minute, but I want to move on. This is a very disheartening story. Christian keeps asking me when I'm going to come to Brazil. I would love to come to Brazil, Christian. That sounds amazing, but not rolling in money. So yeah, I've got to find a gig down there. Someone needs to pay me to come perform or something. or people could just pay me. You could just be like, come hang out on a beach and we'll pay for your flight. Like, okay, sure. Now, I think that's unlikely, but all right, so I was going to say, this is a disheartening note about your friend and mine, Richard Medhurst. He has been told by the British police that he's supposed to surrender to them within the next month. And many of you probably already know, and I've had him on the show many times. He's an amazing journalist. He's one of the best there is on Gaza. Honestly, he does such great work. So amazing on Gaza, on Syria, and he's based basically in Britain and I think Austria, and cops from both countries have swarmed his house or abode or whatever, his apartment, and taken his devices in recent weeks. But anyway, he's now been ordered to surrender to Heathrow police by May 15th. Richard Medhurst, the Syrian-born British journalist and son of Nobel Peace Prize winners, was arrested by police last August as part of the Starmer regime's misuse of anti-terror laws to target anti-genocide journalists and activists, and has been kept in limbo for 8 months since, as the police state continues to make the process the punishment, has now been told to surrender himself to Heathrow police on May 15th. And yeah, that's a great point about making the process the punishment. He may, if this were to go to trial and everything, he very well could get off, and maybe he'll not serve any more prison time. I believe he was kept in prison for 24 hours or something already. but maybe he won't. Maybe he won't serve any more time. But imagine what this does to your life. I mean, he really can't be a journalist right now because he's been arrested and he's being accused for speaking, for doing journalism, for using certain words in Britain. And so he doesn't know what he's allowed to say and what he's not allowed to say. And his devices have been stolen, which makes it very much more difficult for him to continue to be a journalist. Thank you so much to Denise for supporting the show. And so they really just want to upend his life. They just want to make it as difficult as possible. Now, they may ultimately lock him up, which would be, again, truly horrific. But even if they don't, their process, this process is designed to try and shut him up and stop him. Medhurst commented on the regime's criminalization of journalism that he still does not know whether he will be charged with an offense under the Terrorism Act, carrying a potential 14-year sentence or potentially 2 years for protecting the confidentiality of his journalistic sources by refusing to disclose his device passwords to police, or whether the investigation will be extended or dropped altogether. He also expressed his hope that supporters will gather at the police station on the day in question. He says, Richard Medhurst says, criminalization of journalism, I must surrender myself by May 15th, unless they decide to drop their investigation, extend it again for the third time, or charge me under the Terrorism Act. I take it I'll see a few of you there. So he's asking for, if you're in Britain, he's asking for your support, showing up on May 15th, and making the police realize that they can do this fascist garbage, but they're gonna have to do it with people around. They're gonna be watched, okay? They're gonna know. We know that you're fascist fucks. Like, let's let them know that. Unfortunately, I'm not in Britain, but if I was near there, I would absolutely be all about it. May 15th. I think if you go to his Twitter, he also maybe has something to raise money for his legal defense, but I don't have that on hand. If so, anyway, let's hope that this is over soon, and let's just make sure this is a giant spotlight on the fact that Britain, much like the United States, is becoming increasingly fascist. This is an arrest of a journalist for speaking, for journalizing, which is a word I think I just made up. That's what this is. Like, that's all this is. This is like, you spoke to a source. Guess what? Even if Medhurst spoke to the tippity top guy in Hamas, even if he did, that's still allowable under journalism. That still should be legal. That still should be freedom of press. That still should be freedom of speech. Even if, and I'm not saying he did, I don't know who his sources are, but even if he spoke to the head of ISIS, that's what doing journalism is. He didn't, and again, I don't know any of this. I'm just making it up, but if a journalist speaks to the head of ISIS, they're not doing it to like further ISIS's plans or smuggle biggity bombs into like, and if they were to do that, if he were to now be involved in a terrorist plot, you'd arrest him for that because they'd have evidence of that. Instead, they have nothing like that. They just think that they just don't like what he's saying, and they're hoping that if they troll through his devices, they'll find out he's been speaking to someone that they consider a terrorist. But that's what journalists, actual good journalists, not the garbage at ABC News and CBS News and CBC News and BBC News and Fox News and CNN News and all of them. Not that shit. I mean, real journalists are supposed to talk to these people. They should be speaking on the phone to Hamas. And hell, they should be speaking on the phone to the biggest terrorist in the world, the IDF. They should call up the head of defense, quote unquote, in Israel, whoever replaced Yoav Gallant, and they should get him on the phone, and they should get quotes and ask him tough questions. And I'm sure he's not going to answer the phone, but yeah, you should speak to the top terrorist guys in the world, like Donald Trump. That should be journalism. That's what it is. That's what doing journalism is. But yeah, it's a fascist, fucking fascist state. Like, to sum it all up, fucking fascist. That's what it is. And Britain is hoping, besides just stopping Richard Medhurst, they're hoping this creates a chilling effect to anyone who dares do journalism, dares journalize. Anyone dare journalizing. All right. Speaking of Donald Trump and what he's been up to, there are leaks coming out that it's actually, this is how psychotic our government is. It's filled with psychopaths. And there are reports coming out that Trump, psychopath of all psychopaths, is the one who has, for the moment, stopped possible strikes on Iran. Now, I'll get more into this in a minute, but the U.S. is building up as if they may ultimately still strike Iran. However, and this is from the New York Times. Other indie reporters that I respect say that this leak is legitimate and that it's not one of those things where the CIA or something goes, "Oops, we leaked something to the press. Oh, what happened? I didn't realize that it was going to be on the news." But this seems to be a legitimate leak that Trump has waved off Israeli strikes after waved off Israeli strikes on Iran, not strikes on Israel. Waved off Israeli strikes after divisions emerged in his administration. And it goes on to detail how there's multiple people in the Trump administration who want to bomb Iran, and one of them being Netanyahu. And yes, I consider Netanyahu in the Trump administration because they're one and the same. But multiple people want to strike Iran basically now, yesterday. Israel is warming up towards that. And initially, at the behest of Mr. Netanyahu, senior Israeli officials updated their American counterparts on a plan that would have combined an Israeli commando raid on underground nuclear sites with a bombing campaign. So they were going to send Israeli commandos into Iran along with a bombing campaign, an effort that the Israelis hoped would involve American aircraft. But Israeli military officials said the commando operation would not be ready until October. Mr. Netanyahu wanted it carried out more quickly. Israeli officials began shifting to a proposal for an extended bombing campaign that would have also required American assistance. And so for now, they're saying that the U.S. is saying they want to speak to Iran. They want to actually have negotiations with Iran. But they're threatening like crazy, which apparently threatening to strike other countries is also a crime. You can't just threaten to bomb other countries if they don't agree to things. It's a crime under international law, I believe. But the U.S. does that. I mean, it's one of our many war crimes that we're quite proud of. And so, you can read about, Trump saying no to the strikes for right now. There is a buildup of U.S. equipment in that area, in that region of the world, Qatar, and there's another place where we've been amassing jets and aircraft carriers are heading over there. And so it does seem like Trump and his goons, the U.S. Psychopathocracy, are getting together to possibly bomb Iran. There's a lot of problems with that, such as Iran's ability to shut down the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's ability to strike Israel, which they have already proven that they can get through the so-called Iron Dome that I think many people now call the Tofu Dome. But here, let's so you can go read about that stuff, but let's get to a little deeper level, which is, why is it the U.S. and Israel hate Iran so much? Israel wants to steal some of Iran's land, but also Iran is one of the strongest countries that facilitates the other resistance aspects to Israel and greater Israel. And anyway, George W. Bush used to admit this. He used to publicly say that we may need to bomb Iran for Israel. And then he was told to stop saying that. So Sorry, I don't exactly know who put together this clip, but it clarifies this point pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. This is George W. For those of you listening to the podcast, and hey, folks, this is a podcast. It is called Moment of Clarity on Apple Podcasts. So if you prefer podcasts or you're in your car, you can listen to it there. Anyway, this is from March 20th, 2006. It starts with George W. Bush.
At the City Club of Cleveland.
The threat from Iran is, of course, their stated objective to destroy our strong ally, Israel. That's a threat, a serious threat. It's a threat to world peace. It's a threat, in essence, to a strong alliance. I made it clear. I'll make it clear again that we will use military might to protect our ally, Israel. And
this rhetoric prompted calls to tone down language invoking Israel as the catalyst for aggression toward Iran. Writes Ori Nir for The Forward. Jewish community leaders have urged the White House to refrain from publicly pledging to defend Israel against possible Iranian hostilities. Messages were passed to the White House through several channels, Jewish activists said, and it seems to have worked. Speaking before the annual conference of the American Jewish Committee in Washington last week, President Bush talked about America's commitment to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. But he did not link the two, as he has several times in recent months. One of these activists, Nir writes, was none other than Abraham Foxman, longtime national director of the pro-Israel Anti-Defamation League. We are basically telling the president, we appreciate it, we welcome it, but hey, maybe you shouldn't say it that often or that loud. Within the Jewish community, there is a real sense of thank you, but no thank you. Malcolm Hoenlein.
By the way, I hate when they say Jewish community and not Zionist community. Remember, those are two different things. There are millions of anti-Zionist Jews, so let's be clear on that. But anyway, Bush used to make clear, thank you, Nadia, for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Hello from Berlin, says Nadia. Hello to you. Really heating up over here. Yeah, I bet it is. But so George W. Bush used to make clear that the reason we would bomb Iran was to help Israel, to protect Israel. The reason we'd bomb a country with millions of people was just the hypothetical threat to our vassal state in Israel. And he used to make that clear, but then you had the Zionist community, like the ADL saying, just make up a different reason that you want to bomb Iran. Could you stop saying that it's for Israel? Can you make up some other reasons that you're going to do that? Just stop saying it's for us. And so then the U.S., you'll notice since that time, the U.S. just constantly said, oh, it's the nuclear thing, nuclear weapons. That's the real reason. It's just they're going to get nuclear weapons. It's probably nuclear weapons. That's why we need to bomb them, is their nuclear weapons. And of course, during this entire time, Israel has nuclear weapons. They have nuclear weapons. We should have investigated them, attack, they need to have investigators and the inspectors down there. But no one mentions that. No, just Iran. They're the only scary ones with nuclear weapons, which they don't have. But so Bush then stopped connecting it to Israel. And then there's the secondary reason, which I know I'm a broken record, but it happens to be important to know this. So I keep saying it. There's the other reason that the U.S. and Israel want to go after Iran, which is if there are large countries with a lot of oil who are pumping that oil outside of U.S. dollars, petrodollars, that's a major problem for the U.S. And therefore, Iran is one of the biggest ones that we still want to stop from doing that. They're one of the most powerful, one of the largest, and one of the most oil-heavy countries out there that are pumping it outside of U.S. dollars. The others, we've already destroyed. We've already stopped. Syria, Iraq, Libya, already done it. Venezuela, we have stopped, even though we haven't destroyed their society, which I certainly hope we don't. But we've stopped them from getting most of their oil because the economic sanctions have basically made it impossible for Venezuela to get much oil out. I think they're able to get some to a select few countries, but for the most part, Venezuela has been stopped from pumping a lot of their oil, which no country has more oil than Venezuela, but the U.S. has successfully stopped them using economic war. So there you go. They're the real reasons that you're definitely not going to hear that on mainstream media. They're not going to mention the real reasons that we're going after Iran. All right, I wanted to bring you, this is kind of in relation to the tariff story, which I've covered this tariff story a lot, so I don't need to go through it all again, but this is just a funny video that someone put together of the Trump store. There's a Trump store in Vegas, I think, at the Trump Hotel, and the Trump store sells only Trump stuff. And where do you think most of that Trump stuff is made, folks?
This is the Trump store inside the Trump Hotel, and my question is, how many things inside of here are made in America? Ooh, look at that bomber jacket. China. This mug says designed in Oregon, but made in China. What about the classic Stanley Cup? Made in China. Now this bottom shelf, I don't know what to think about it. This mug says designed in Oregon, but I don't see where it's made. So on this one, I took the price tag sticker off the bottle, and there it is, made in China. There's no way the sticker is strategically placed over the made in China part, right? Let's take a look at all of them. Made in China covered, another made in China covered. This white one, made in China covered. Not everything was either China or USA. This Las Vegas hat was made in Bangladesh, and this woman's golf hat was made in Vietnam.
Yeah, all of his products are not made in the U.S., even though they have giant American flags on them, because he's a fucking lunatic. And he does it, like, there's no honesty in these people. There's no irony, like, level of understanding their own ironic existence. There's no level that's too much hypocrisy. None of that. There is no, at no point this Trump thing, that's a little hypocritical of me. And, well, I'll get to that in a second. I'm not to get off on too much of a tangent. I'll get off on too much of a tangent in a moment. But all these countries, even the ones that are not China, which he's put massive tariffs on China. China has put large tariffs on the U.S., but they say they're not responding anymore because they've put such huge tariffs on it that American products are going to be meaningless in China soon. He puts, but he's also threatened these massive tariffs on those other countries as well. He's just put a pause on them. Vietnam, Bangladesh, where these he's put giant tariffs on them. He put a pause on them for the moment. Thank you, Alex, for supporting the show. Really appreciate that. More power to you. Solidarity. But yeah, all this shit's made in China or one of those countries because the American manufacturers don't want to pay for U.S. employees. They don't want to pay someone to actually have a, reasonable salary, a reasonable amount of money, a reasonable pension, health care. No, of course not. Thank you, Circle Home Services. Whatever that is, I appreciate you supporting the show. And so, yeah, there's no hypocrisy that, Tony Clifton is telling me that I was conceived in China. Was I? Well, I think that's not true. I don't even know that my parents have ever been to China. Unless you mean conceived of as in China thought of me. I guess that would mean China came up with the idea of me, then called my parents and told them, listen, you better get busy, all right? Because we need you to make that guy. Thank you, Tony Clifton. By the way, Tony Clifton, I heard there is a new amazing documentary on Andy Kaufman. I have not seen it. I plan to see it, but not sure who put it out, who put it together, but supposed to be good. New documentary on Andy Kaufman. Anyway, I want to talk about I didn't even get to my tangent. Jesus, got to get to my tangent. My tangent was going to be that at the root of this, not the tariffs, but the fact that all these products are made in other countries it's the heart of capitalism, right? That's what capitalism is. The people that rule the society will go to where the labor is cheapest. Ultimately, even if you initially have, big buy in America, buy American made efforts and everything, eventually those will get broken down. Even if you have high regulations, eventually those will get broken down. And eventually they'll go to where the labor is just totally the cheapest, 100% the cheapest. That is where it will end up. And that's why all this stuff is made in other countries. And furthermore, in a kind of unfettered capitalist system like we have in the American system, you're going to end up with the people with the least care for being hypocritical, the least care for being psychopaths, the least care for others or other human beings. They're going to get to the top of the system every goddamn time. Every time. There may be exceptions here and there, but those are the exceptions that prove the rule. Like, so with presidency, obviously, like governors and obviously the person that cares the least about trampling on everyone else will get to those positions almost without fail. And when you see an exception, it's the exception that proves the rule. But even outside of politics, even outside of the corporate world or basically the corporate world, if you just look at like my world, like independent media entertainers or whatever you want to call it is that I do, it's like the ones who are most willing to step on everyone else and to change views because they don't actually have a moral core to begin with, and most willing to say ads for the most terrible businesses, the spoken word Nestle ads or Monsanto ads or something. They're going to be the ones who do the best. They're going to be the ones at the top of the system because they're going to always go the path of least resistance. They're never going to go to the thing that, like, the YouTube censoring this topic. Well, it doesn't matter if they're censoring, Gaza or genocide in Gaza, or they're censoring climate crisis, which, by the way, my last video, which was 1 minute joking about people who don't believe in climate crisis, that was banned on TikTok. So if those kind of things happen, well, the people who just want to get to the top of these systems, they'll just stop talking about it. Oh, okay. Climate crisis is kind of suppressed. Gaza is kind of suppressed. I'll just move on. Just move on to another topic. And so they're going to be the most successful. So at every level, the people who are most successful in this system, and I just given the example that is my world, but I imagine you guys feel the same in your worlds, in whatever it is you do, or whatever it is your passion is, or wherever you work. It's going to generally be the same. There are occasionally some little bubbles where it's a little less like that. Like, if you're but thank you, Ernie Hill, for supporting the show. I really appreciate it. If you're a social worker and the person at the head of the social work organization or company happens to just be a really awesome person, so they promote really awesome people. Yeah, there are little bubbles in this world where it's maybe a little less like that, but for the most part, Nope. It's just the shittiest at the top. Thank you again, Ernie Hill. Appreciate it. But yeah, and that's why you see so many people avoiding the topic of Gaza. It's not that they never mention it. They'll mention it a little bit here or there, but they know those videos are suppressed. So why cover them that often? And that's the garbage we're facing. Okay, so let me talk about these Trump protests that are happening this weekend, anti-Trump protests. They're not really protests. They're marches, anti-Trump marches, I guess you could call them. I'm not opposed to people, and you guys have heard my spiel on this. I'm not opposed to people going out to these parades. I think there may be some use, but it's really a fine line between showing you support, tearing down this fascism, tearing down Trump, tearing down whatever the fuck is going on right now, the deportation of immigrants, the hatred, the racism. It's a fine line between that and just hitting the release valve so that you can go home and not do anything else. And so these things they're hitting a bunch of cities nationwide, April 19th. That's tomorrow. Supposed to be in 50 states. The grassroots group is called 5051 because it's like 50 states, 50 something else, and one dude. I don't remember what it is. It's 50 states, 50 cities, and one guy. I don't know. It means something. Thank you, Nadia, again for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. But okay, so this 5051 group said April 19th demonstration will be to protest against what is described as a hostile government takeover by the Trump administration. So the first red flag for me is that they only think it's the Trump administration, right? The Trump administration has made certain things worse or more egregious or more in your face. Absolutely. I don't deny that. But if you are acting like Trump was the only problem, then apparently you didn't care about the millions of people deported during the last administration. More people deported during Biden's administration than deported during Trump's first 4 years. Apparently they didn't matter, or the fact that Biden opened more oil drilling than Trump ever did in his first 4 years. Apparently that didn't matter. So it's a big red flag to me when you just say, Trump has stolen our government, and that's the only problem. But beyond that, Hunter Dunn, national press coordinator for the organization, told Newsweek that the day is less about protesting, which again, I don't even call these protests, but less about protesting and more about raising awareness of myriad issues. Okay, then call it a parade. Say we're having an anti-Trump parade. I'm glad he's being honest and saying it's not about protesting. Here's a quote from him. The 5051 movement has called for a national day of action, this is not action, also known as a national day of community action, not a national day of protest. So he's telling everyone not to protest. Don't get in the way of business as usual. Don't interrupt things. Don't actually do anything that could stop what's going on. Don't even create a line of people between ICE and the people they're trying to black bag. Don't even do that. He continues, there are plenty of demonstrations happening around the country as part of the day of action, which, again, not action, but the primary focus of the day is speaking to the needs of the community. I don't know, it seems like both a release valve to get people to think they did something, but at the same time, it's trying to co-opt things like mutual aid, which you can't have one day of mutual aid, because they meant later in the article, they mentioned that they'll have mutual aid at these parades. You can't have one day of creating a mutual aid. And I was, and Eleanor more so than me, were involved in the mutual aid in Washington, D.C. And it was going every day. Like, you volunteer, or people are volunteering every day. It's not, hey, there's a parade in this area by the White House, and if you happen to be there, you can get food for a minute. And so to me, it sounds like a parade that is trying to say, hey, we're also co-opting mutual aid. So I'm not opposed to people being anti-Trump. Our leaders are all disgusting in their many ways, but to me, this sounds like they're literally saying, they're calling it a day of action, and they're telling people not to have any action. A day of action without protest. A day of action with we are not protesting. Like, who the fuck says that? Who goes, we're getting everyone together across the nation, but do not protest. What the fuck is this? What are you talking about? And then they had the nerve to quote that. I used to quote this number. I mean, I still do, but I used to as well. What was this? It's a comedian who said something. I used to do drugs. Was it Mitch Hedberg said I used to do drugs? I still do, but I used to too. Yeah, Mitch Hedberg. Well, I used to quote this stat. I still do as well. That the studies have shown you only need 3.5% of the populace to be committed to change, to create a revolution. 3.5%. Not a huge number. But the key to that number is that this is 3.5% is really committed to change and really going to fight for it and really going to protest and really going to interrupt business as usual. Not the other thing. Because they're quoting that number. Not 3.5% of the population will show up on a Saturday from 2 to 4 and hold a sign. That is not what that number means. You've got it completely wrong. All right. Tony Clifton throwing in the $5. Love it. Love it. Oh, yes, I should do that. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know if you could hear that or not. Eleanor is yelling from the wings. She is very sad she couldn't make it today. But Eleanor would like for me, and I'm glad she reminded me, to tell you all that she has written a Substack article about parades and how they do not have an impact. And other than, you can wake up, especially younger people can be made aware of issues. So you could have things like that. But and she says it far better than I could. So if you're a reader, if we got a reader here, go to eleanorgoldfield.substack.com for that article. I'm also on Substack, substack.com/@realleecamp, which I guess looking at her URL, I assume mine would be realleecamp.substack.com. Maybe I should have written that. Anyway. Okay, I am almost going to wrap up. I'm going to play, in case you haven't seen it, I'm going to play just a minute or two of the latest episode of Unredacted tonight. I'll come back and say goodbye after I play the clip, but I would love for you to go watch the full episode because that's how I get view numbers. So that is at leecamp.com/unredacted. It'll take you straight to the playlist. But okay, here is, without further ado, here is a minute or two of the latest episode of Unredacted tonight. On today's show, we'll get into the dark and censored history of Israel's attacks on Americans. Americans? It sounded like you just said Americans. Oh, I did, voice in my head who's excessively skeptical of me. Plus, the Trump administration's national threat assessment is out, and it's hot, hot, hot. It's hotter than a clean-shaven J.D. Vance whispering sweet nothings into your ear about how much he hates Donald Trump.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
I don't think he actually cares about folks.
There is definitely an element of Donald Trump support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia.
So sexy. I love a man who looks like a thumb with a necktie on. Anyway, this national threat assessment has some shocking new enemies for the U.S. to take aim at. Thank goodness, because we wouldn't want the final season of America to get too boring. All that and more coming up right now. Welcome to Unredacted Tonight. I'm the most censored comedian in America, Lee Camp. The other day, the Trump administration put out the annual National Threat Assessment. Some of it is quite shocking, and it gives the nation a good idea of what we should look out for and who we should hate simply for their skin color. There are some dastardly skin colors out there, like mauve. But I gotta warn you, this threat assessment is a scary read. In fact, the only book that frightened me more was Bill O'Reilly's children's book, The O'Reilly Factor for Kids. So everybody hold hands and put on your big boy pants because we're diving in. Let's start with the intro. It says both state and non-state actors pose multiple immediate threats to the homeland and U.S. national interest. Terrorist and transnational criminal organizations are directly threatening our citizens. Threatening our citizens. And these terrorists all come from countries that we have had nothing to do with, like Afghanistan and Iraq and Libya and Somalia and Syria and Yemen. We Americans are just sitting here minding our own business. And then these angry people want to hurt us. Why? 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 Is it that they just can't stand how kind and considerate we are? Or maybe they hate us for our freedom and our delicious green smoothies and delightful hard seltzers. I bet it's the seltzers. You know, you guys could make your own seltzer, all right, rather than strapping napalm to your nipples and getting on a flight to Chicago, okay? All right. There's a little sampling of Unredacted tonight. I hope you'll go check it out. That's the new episode. And the second half of that episode is about the top 7 times that Israel has murdered Americans and gotten away with it. Some very interesting old history there. I call it mind-blowing old history. Because if we don't know our histories, our histories, yeah, I just made it plural. If we don't know our history, we're doomed to repeat it. Who was it who said that? I can't remember because I don't read history. Okay, but that's all at leecamp.com/unredacted. I do hope you'll go over there. If you want to support this show other than just watching Unredacted, then here are some things you can do. You can listen to the podcast, which is called Moment of Clarity on Apple Podcasts. You could listen to my other podcast, Common Censored with Eleanor Goldfield. But you can most importantly become a member at leecamp.net or patreon.com/leecamp. And it would also be awesome, even if you're not going to become a paying member, if you just join up for free at leecamp.net, my locals page. Take you right there. There is a free way to join up. Just click become a member. If you want to become a supporter, paying supporter, scroll down to become a supporter. Okay, folks, I will see you Monday for another live stream. There's no Unredacted Tonight next week. We're taking a week off, but I will be doing my live stream. So I'll see you anyway. Keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
The same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.